Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Doctors of Running podcast, where we, a group of doctors of physical therapy, talk about the art and the science of the things that we're put on our feet. Today, I have Dr. Salas and myself, and we are going to do a special episode talking about the entire Saucony line. Now, to be fair, a lot of the shoes that we're going to talk about, there are going to be some updates probably by the time that you hear this. We are recording this January, what day is it? January 12th, 2024?
I never know what day it is. January 12th. January 12th. Yep, that is correct.
And so we have a couple updates that we know about that are coming out. We have not tested them yet, but we'll probably reference that just so if you are hearing this a little later, if you're looking for an older model, great, it'll be helpful. But if you're looking for the update, we will obviously have reviews out coming soon, but we haven't tested stuff. Specifically, the Saucony Hurricane 25, the Triumph 23, and the Speed 5 are all coming out in the next couple months. But we'll reference those, but we haven't run them yet, so we'll hold too much commentary, but just know that those are coming out. Before we get started, David, how are you doing? We've got to do a little intro here, ease us all into this. What's up?
Doing good, man. I mean, same old in my world. You know, I haven't really rocked the boat too much. Yeah, running, working, doing DOR stuff.
Yep, in the same boat. Semester for us at George Fox starts tomorrow, so good luck to all the DPT students who will, if any of them listen, will hear this after their semester has started. So I hope the first week or so was good. And I'm also wishing that to myself. I can survive this. So let's jump in with Saucony. Saucony, we've had an interesting relationship with over the years. They were one of the earlier companies that reached out to us and we were able to start working with, and they were nice enough to both send us product as well as let us work with them a little bit. So we've been over there twice now to their headquarters, which they were moving, right? Did they officially move? Do we hear that? Or was that halted?
I don't know how much of that's supposed to be internal or not or what, but oops. I think Wolverine, though, as a company was moving. I don't know about Saucony, though. I remember things were kind of up in the air, so I don't actually know.
Hopefully I didn't just say something. Hopefully I didn't say something I wasn't supposed to. But they've been a really, really great group. And it's been really, really fun to talk to them and learn from them. And we went over there kind of the first time we were looking at the new updates of the Tempest. And then the second time not the update, but the origin of the Tempest. And we got to talk with them about that and what they were doing. And then the second time was to get a combination of seeing the updates at the time to the ride and the guide, which they were totally redoing those, which we enjoyed. And then we got to do some fun economy testing of a couple different shoes that we can't quite say. But it was a really interesting time. And we were in the middle of some insane weather storm when we got poured on.
Oh, yeah. The street flooded.
Yeah.
And then it was actually kind of funny for the listeners. If you can picture this, it's like the way their performance lab is set up. There's a tall window kind of out facing this road, and there's a slight downhill to the road. And it is just raining cats and dogs. I mean, it is raining hard. Yeah. And the road flooded and took the little manhole off, right? Or whatever. And then they're like, oh yeah, every once in a while that happens. And then they had to close off an entire lane or something to get it situated. I don't remember. It was an actual hazard at that point.
Wasn't there an accident literally outside the window?
I think there was two, I think. Gosh, there was one in the early part of the day and then one while we were testing.
We were like, whoa. Yeah. So we've had some
kind of just chugging away. And in economy testing, you're not running that easy, So no. You're running pretty hard and you're just watching chaos on the street underneath you.
Yeah, it was slightly distracting. So yeah, we've had some fun times and interesting times.
Second floor,
second floor, I think. Yeah. So we've had some very good times with them. And the hope of this is to kind of give a little insight into a breakdown of the line. And to be honest with you, we are not going to go through every single shoe. So Saucony does have kind of the main line that we're going to talk about. They also have some budget trainers and stuff that we either haven't tried or we just aren't really going to go over because they aren't typically available in Run Specialty or Run Specialty websites. But know that we are aware of those, and those are available if you were looking for more budget friendly options. Although we will talk about actually a couple that they have that are a little easier on the wallet. We'll definitely reference that. So let's jump in if everybody's ready. And of course, we got to talk about the neutral category first. And the three primary shoes in this classic neutral category are going to be the Saucony Triumph 22, the Ride 18, and the Echelon 9. And so I'll do a little deep dive on the Echelon because I think it was the only one of the team to run on that. But David, talk us through Triumph 22, Ride 18, kind of overarching. What was we talking about? Like what is it? What is it supposed to be used for? How do we use it? And there's any special populations that we think that this may really benefit people?
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into this conversation. I think when we look at the neutral category, it's important to look at, well, like, how is it intended to be used? And I have my Ride here. I don't have my Triumph on me, but let's start with the flagship model. So even though we said Triumph first, the Ride is kind of the flagship. It's the normal daily training option. It's priced right around $140. Very competitive price for what the daily training market is. We'll run specifications too, because why not? 9.7 ounces, 274 grams, men's size 9, 8.2 ounces, 232 grams, women's size 8, 37 millimeters of stack in the heel. So this one has come up in stack over the years now, but still not quite 40 plus. I mean, is that moderate? 37 is a lot, but I feel like by today's standards at this point, that is kind of moderate. 29 in the forefoot. So this is your daily training model. It uses a Power Run Plus midsole. So that used to be what was in the Triumph, which was the premium cushioning for Saucony. And I guess that's a good differentiation I should line out right now. When I say flagship, I mean kind of your baseline neutral daily training workhorse shoe. And then most companies, Saucony included, will have what they call a premium trainer, which will usually have a slightly nicer foam, a little bit more cushioning, a little bit more plush upper, et cetera, et cetera. But Power Run Plus is now kind of their mid-grade there, and very durable foam, kind of a TPU-based midsole. This is meant to be your durable workhorse, and it's kind of a gently rockered, but nothing too dramatic, just a very balanced ride throughout. Good traction. It's meant to just eat up miles, and so that's what it's meant to be used for. What I use it for is exactly that. This actually has been one of the trainers I've liked. It's been a pretty recent acquisition, and I just did a long run today in it. So, I mean, it's one of the shoes that I'm still continuing to run in after I've written the review. So I do enjoy the Ride 18. Going into the Saucony Triumph 22. So that is, if you can hold that up, I don't have it, but that one has a little bit more foam on it, and that one is priced at $160, depending on where you're looking. But that's the base price. And 10.5 ounces, 297 grams, men's size 9, 9.0 ounces, 255 grams, women's size 8. Stack height 40-30, so 40 in the heel, 30 in the forefoot, 10 millimeter drop. That is meant to be a premium training shoe. Midsole in this one is going to be Power Run PB, which was the midsole for the racing shoes. And now, even though we say Power Run PB, and all companies do this, they will slightly tune those foams for what the goal and intended use is. And so that is not quite the same Power Run PB as used in, say, the Endorphin Pro line, but it is a PIPA-based midsole, and those types of characteristics still apply. And so a little bit more of a plush experience, a little bit more of a robust upper, a little bit more of a rockered ride on that one. And that is kind of the intended use for there. For me, for whatever reason, that one didn't agree with me too much. So my personal usage of it was mostly standing and walking. I really liked it for standing in a clinic shoe. It's a clean colorway, and it matches my Dallas Cowboys. So if I was wearing a Cowboys polo or something, that white on blue looked pretty good. But that the intended use is to be a workhorse trainer as well. Very high stack, plush, premium option. I do think they get that across. It just didn't quite line up with me quite as well for my own personal mechanics. But for Nate on our team, he loves that shoe, and that's like his favorite shoe. So
Yep, he really liked that. So I'm going to go back before we talk about the Echelon and give, kind of like David got his little takes on what he likes to use these for. I agree with him. The Ride 18 for me is just that classic neutral daily trainer. There's not a lot of stuff in terms of stability stuff going on. So you need just a clean, classic neutral training shoe. This is a great one. It's also a favorite, I think, on the team, or at least for me personally, because it's also versatile. The Power Run Plus, kind of like the older Triumph, which was weirdly responsive. I was like, this is not what I expected Triumph to be. It's not that anymore. But the Ride 18 can definitely do training miles. It can do long runs. And the Power Run Plus definitely responds really well. So if you want to take a shoe that can handle daily training and some up-tempo or workouts, this is a really, really good option because it's slightly firmer and a little bit more responsive without being too stiff. that it can do a lot of stuff. So if you want your do-it-all shoe, this is a really great shoe, and also a really great one to start with, either if you're a newer runner and you're wanting to run a little quicker, or if you're like the high school, college runner that just needs something that can handle a little bit of everything. This is probably going to be that shoe, because I've really enjoyed it and done some pretty decent workouts in it. And David and I talk about all the time, like, should we be doing all of our workouts in super shoes? This is one that I kind of lean back to, and I'm like, I need to take a break from the carbon plated super foams, although the foam is plenty responsive.
Yeah, it's surprisingly responsive. It's probably the most responsive iteration of Power Run Plus I've seen so far.
Yep. And then for me, the Triumph 22, I had the exact same experience as David, and the opposite of Nathan. Nathan loves this shoe. The Power Run PB is tuned very, very compliant. It's not very resilient, meaning it's not going to give you that like really fast responsiveness. It's going to give you that high cushioning. And I 100% agree with you that those who want this as like a slower running shoe, long run shoe, or a standing and walking shoe, if you want a really highly cushioned ride, this is a very good option. It's one of the few super foam shoes that we would suggest actually works really well as a walking and standing shoe, just because the way the foam and the geometry is set up is really nice for that. So people that, again, maybe you don't want a fast shoe, you just love cushioning, you just love a lot of softness, you want a lot of protection, or you want something you can stand in or walk in comfortably for longer miles, that's where the Triumph 22 is coming in as that premium shoe with a little bit more room, a little bit more comfort. That's definitely where this fits, but definitely not the Triumph 21 where it was like super responsive and like could handle anything you threw at it. So, which is great because now you have the ride and the Triumph that are actually differentiated, thank goodness. So now it will make more sense to people. Now, the last one, unfortunately, we don't have anymore because this is a favorite shoe of mine, and I really want to see if they update it. And I'm about ready just to buy a new pair myself. The Saucony Echelon 9, which I apologize I don't have, because I actually gave it to my father-in-law, who stands for like all day and works night shifts on his feet and frequently has foot and ankle issues. And it's a really wonderful shoe. Its purpose is meant as a true stable neutral shoe that can handle orthotics really well and still be a good running, walking shoe. Now, it's actually on the lighter end. A lot of these orthotic friendly shoes are typically pretty heavy, but this shoe came in at 10.3 ounces for men's size 9 or 292 grams and 9.5 ounces or 269 grams for women's size 8. 35 millimeters in the heel, 27 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. But the sidewalls actually come up pretty high, so it looks taller. It's got such a wonderful geometry. You sit really well in the shoe. So if you have, neutral, like if you have like a flatter foot, this is a great shoe because the sidewalls come up, but the arch isn't too high. Or if you need a shoe that still it feels good and rolls along well and you need to put an orthotic in there, it is the insole that's removable is designed for there to be high enough volume here that you can put this thing in, it works well. It is my favorite orthotic friendly shoe of all of them because a lot of the shoes are super clunky. This one does great. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I used it when I broke my toe. And probably wasn't supposed to be running, but it's stiff and rockered enough. Because I've worked in an emergency room before, and I knew like if I walk in there with a broken forward toe, they're going to go, "Oh, just buddy tape it." Like, what's the point? So I'm like, all right, I'm going to tape it. Wear a rockered shoe. Should probably take 3 to 4 weeks off. Lasted a week. Started hobbling on it, and that shoe did really, really well. Not that don't do what I did. Don't be a moron.
Yeah, please don't run on a fractured foot.
Don't do that. So it did heal. Last time I did some imaging on it, doesn't look. I don't know how well that healed. So that's I earned this. So goodness. It doesn't flex all the way at the PIP, but that's my fault. So
I love how you say I earned this.
I earned it. It's my fault. So it's a really great rocker shoe that feels maximal, has a really well rocker geometry, is phenomenal for standing, walking, for rolling along. It's different than the Triumph 22 because it doesn't have the Power Run PB and will take an orthotic better, but it's different than the Ride. It's not nearly as, say, responsive, although it could pick up the pace. It's just a great daily training shoe for somebody that wants that lower arch or orthotic friendly shoe that has a little higher volume, especially if you have a higher volume foot. And so it's definitely a favorite. I'm hoping they update to version 10 and see what they do, and I hope they don't screw it up. But those are the 3 big neutral trainers. Dave, do we miss anything about special considerations or like any kind of big things people should be thinking about when considering these shoes, or special populations that may benefit from them?
I think we hit it. I mean, I
Sweet.
think big thing with Triumph, standing long periods of time, soft cushioning, Ride 18, slightly more responsive, versatile, can do those things. Echelon 9, you're looking at orthotics and stuff like that. So I think we're good.
We
Yeah,
are good.
Those are special considerations right there.
All right. So we're going to move into the stability category, which ironically, this is not very common, that the not flagship, but the primary stability shoes in Saucony actually outnumber the standard neutral ones. I guess because we're not technically counting the racing Endorphin line. So maybe that's not technically true. So, because there's 4.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you meant in models. I thought you meant.
I guess I can't say that.
It lines up pretty evenly.
Yeah, I guess I technically can't say that because you got the Endorphin trainer. All right, so just ignore what I just said. But they still have a good number of stability models, which is not very common. The 4 major ones, which I'm going to go grab, and if to not make our sound engineer mad, I'm going to stop talking so I don't talk away from the microphone, which I've heard about before.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Dang.
To be fair, totally justified. Now, we have 3 of these. There are actually 4. We have not, at least Dave and I, we actually started our running journeys, I think, in one of the older versions of this. We haven't got to try it.
Definitely.
But that's not true. I have tried it in store, but we didn't get to test it. And so not fully commenting, but also going kind of, here's what it felt like. So for those that want this, here's what it is. So the 4 shoes that we're going to talk about in the stability line are going to be the Saucony Guide 18, the Saucony Tempest 2, the Saucony Hurricane 24, which will be updated to the 25 in the middle of this year, I think. And then the last one, which we don't have, is the Saucony Omni 22. And I'm going to start with the Omni to get it out of the way. A lot of the shoes in Saucony's line, outside of the Guide 18, have been updated with newer foams. Both the Hurricane and the Tempest have Power Run PB in them, although both of them actually also have Power Run to balance things out. The Guide has been really, really updated and evolved quite a bit from the Guide 16, where it was a little more traditional, that it had, what was it called, the hollow frame, which is like this plastic piece that was kind of like that arch, that medial posting. That went away with the Guide. So the Guide is now more of this like guidance-based shoe where you're kind of kept in the middle. If you still want that post feeling, the Omni 22 is basically the Guide 16 with a teeny bit more refinement. So if you're going, you know what? I'm not a big fan of this whole guidance and everything. I want to feel a medial post. You're going to want to go for the Omni. The Omni's traditionally been traditional. It's been that more traditional stability shoe for those who just want a little bit more cushioning, although it doesn't have the most cushioning, even though it felt like it when I tried it on. It's 10.1 ounces or 287 grams for men's size 9, 35 millimeters in the heel, 27 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. So almost like exactly the same as the older Guide. If that's something you want, that's where that shoe is going to come into. And so we don't discriminate against people that like that post feeling or do really well with post or do better with guidance. It really comes down to individual needs. Some people really do well with that what we think is like proprioceptive, that pressure into your arch. It's what's called proprioceptive input. Some people do well, and that kind of stimulates to go, oh, I'm aware of this. Maybe that helps guide them a little bit or maybe activate some muscles, versus others don't do well with a medial post. And just to define this, a medial post is a firmer piece of material or some kind of mechanism on one side of the shoe that's supposed to slow down movement in that direction. The guidance shoe, like the Guide, doesn't have that, and the Hurricane doesn't have that either. What both of those shoes, and the Tempest, actually, what all 3 of these other shoes do is they have a kind of foundation where your foot is sitting into the shoe, typically got sidewalls, in the internal geometry of the shoe is set up to help guide you forward and kind of, instead of forcing you in one direction, kind of keeping you in the middle as you move forward. So that's where Saucony's guidance and a lot of the concepts there. But let's talk about the Guide first. David, give us a little bit of your take on, as both on kind of purpose, specs, and what you think about it.
Yeah, I'll start off with specifications here. So again, this is pretty comparable. Again, this is kind of the flagship stability model, which should be kind of like the one that's sold a lot and kind of the more approachable price point-ish, like kind of your baseline training model there, but in the stability category. So it is also at $140, depending where you look, as compared to the Ride. Also both 18 iterations. Specifications, we're looking at 9.6 ounces, 272 grams, men's size 9, 8.6 ounces, 245 grams, women's size 8, stack height 35 in the heel, 29 in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter drop platform. when we look at this is definitely, like Matt was saying, is built off of a guidance type of platform. And when you look at the heel, very wide, a lot of cross-sectional area, tall sidewalls through the rear foot, and it basically continues along through the midfoot, and then it shallows out a little bit in the forefoot, but it definitely relies a lot on its geometry. And so very rounded sole there, and so big bevel in the heel. I mean, it's not a crazy toe spring, but there's a good forefoot rocker there as well. So, and it's a Power Run midsole, not a Power Run PB or Power Run Plus. Power Run is that traditional EVA type foam. And the reasoning for that most likely is it's a firmer foam. It's going to feel more stable, less deformation underfoot. Like, this is a shoe that's meant to give you some guidance while you're running. It's not necessarily meant to be the quote unquote premium option. It's meant to just give you a solid, sturdy foam underfoot and get you to transition with some guidance. And hence the name. I don't know why I didn't even like put that together. Guide 18. So revelations on air.
No judgment.
But yeah, so workhorse, daily trainer, stability category. This one relies more on geometry and guidance.
Yep. I think this is also a really good one for people that go, hey, you know what? I might need a little stability, but I don't think I need something like really aggressive. As David said, kind of a workhorse flagship shoe that a lot of people, especially newer runners, are going to do very well. And it's also a great walking shoe as well.
Definitely.
For people that don't need something complicated, don't need something the most cushion, but just need a little bit of help kind of staying in the middle. It's a great shoe. And honestly, I think in today's world, for those that either work in running stores or people that are just getting into running, if you have any inclination you might need some stability, this is the type of shoe I'd really suggest first. It's almost like the newest version of mild stability shoes. I don't think this is a moderate to higher stability shoe, because you like when you step in, you're like, wait, I feel a little bit of the sidewall on the midfoot, and then I feel a little bit of pressure on the lateral. It's not aggressive. So this is like your mild stability shoe now that just gives, like, if you just need a little bit over time, it's great. It also is a great way to ease you in and help you figure out, hey, do I need a ton of stability or not? And after you finish running in this shoe, if you want to try something else as a new runner, it gives you a little bit more, I'm going to use a pun here, guidance on kind of what direction you might be able to go, because it doesn't force you in one direction too much. So it's a pretty solid shoe, but it's definitely not as overly stable. Like, you don't have that aggressive post like the 16 was, which worked for a lot of people. Like, I really liked it, but now that's where the Omni is. So special considerations there. We're going to move on to our first, I guess it's not our first faster shoe because we talked about the ride, but the Saucony Tempest 2, or the whole Tempest series, is really meant as it was actually originally, we were briefly told it was like a semi-Hurricane replacement, but then it was totally different from the Hurricane, and the Hurricane came back. So this is really meant as the up-tempo stability shoe, which there are not a lot of these on the market. I think we just found out, we might be wrong. Somebody please correct us. We've been talking about this at the, what's the Brooks shoe? The Launch GTS has maybe been discontinued. Don't quote me on that, which would be really sad. You have the Hyperion GTS from Brooks, which is, you get neither one of those are super. This is the only, I think, up-tempo shoe, stability shoe that has a super foam in it. But then you have the Asics GT2000, which is on the lighter side and has done a great job. But this is like one of the few stability shoes you can handle running a little faster. It's on the low 9-ounce range now. It's 9.3. This version is 9.3 ounces for men's size 9, 8.2 ounces for women's size 8, 264, 232 for those who want grams. Stack height is 38-30, so an 8 millimeter drop. There is an internal layer of Power Run PB you can see with a frame of Power Run, and the idea is, like, again, you're landing, you get this nice bouncy foam, but the way that the EVA frame is set up is it helps keep you in the middle, so you get this nice bouncy ride, but it rolls you forward. It is not plated. It is it is stiff. It can flex a little bit. So this is your, hey, I want something a little bit up tempo. Maybe I want to go run a marathon, but the super shoes out there aren't stable enough for me. This is where this is meant. And I'm going to be honest that I think it's pretty aggressive in terms of stability. So while the Guide is actually more mild, this is more moderate because the sidewalls get pretty aggressive. So if you're sensitive to sidewalls, be a little cautious with this shoe. Same thing with the Hurricane, actually. But it is one of the few that can really handle up-tempo paces. So while the Ride 18 in the neutral category can do easy and faster stuff, the Guide and the Tempest are really split, where the Tempest can do daily, but it can definitely do more up-tempo stuff. And the guide is really set up to do easier efforts. You can try to run faster in it, but it's not really what it's meant for. The other thing about the Tempest is it does run pretty snug. So if you need a little wider fit, this may not work for you.
Yeah, I just want to bring up too with the Tempest in the second version, because I don't actually have the second version. That still has the EVA sidewalls. Yeah, so it's a dual density shoe where the base of it is mostly Power Run PB, soft, plush, responsive. But the sidewalls and kind of the encasing and I guess you could call it a posting. It's not really like a true like firm posting, but
I mean, it's firmer than the Power Run PB.
The Power Run PB though. Yeah. And so you get that guidance, but it's a lot more prominent without being heavy per se. So that's what Klein was getting at.
Yeah. And if I was going to categorize these moving into the next one, I would say the Guide 18 and Omni kind of match, or like paired with like the Guide being your flagship shoe, the Omni being a little bit more premium. I can't remember how much, I forgot to put how much the Omni costs, but it's just a little bit more premium, a little bit more aggressive stability than the Guide. And it's the same thing with the Tempest and the Hurricane, which again, these are the only stability shoes out on the market at this time that actually have a super foam in them. So Tempest 2 has Power Run PB in it. And then the Hurricane is the more premium version coming in at $160. So very similar price point to the Tempest. The Tempest was 100 and
we've got 160
as well.
Right here.
That's right. Yeah. So similar price. The Hurricane is the more aggressive stability of the two of these. So it has a Power Run PB top layer, more of it. There's a little higher stack height than the Tempest, only by a little bit. And I'll talk about that in a second. It's coming in at, again, $160, 10.6 ounces, so heavier, or 3 or 2 grams for men's size 9, 9.8 ounces, or 279 grams for women's size 8. 38 millimeters in the heel, so same thing, but way more aggressive sidewall, so it looks way taller. And then 32 millimeters in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter drop. So slightly lower drop, which I can tell you as a heel striker feels more aggressive because the Power Run PB really like compresses. It's got this bottom slight side layer of the Power Run underfoot, and then your foot is sitting into and on top of the Power Run PB. So this is the more premium model. This is not a shoe that's going to handle up-tempo stuff. Upper, despite how the Triumph fits, this is actually a little lower volume. So people that have lower volume feet are going to actually do better. It does have a little bit of width, but there's a taper in the forefoot. So I'd say lower volume, slightly more narrow feet are probably going to do really, really well in this shoe. And it's for the people that just want that really premium stability ride or guidance ride, because it is very centered. And this one, I got to warn you, if you do not do well with sidewalls, this is going to rip your foot up because the sidewalls are very aggressive. I do very well with them. But if you don't, and you want more of that post feeling and a firmer feel, you're going to want to go with the Omni. But for those who want a softer stability shoe, this is going to be one of the fewer ones on the market right now, but it is more guidance based. I will still say though, that midfoot, it feels almost like there's a post in there, but there isn't. It's just the sidewall is so aggressive. So also a great shoe if you need a lot more stability, you want a soft ride, and you want a decent walking shoe, this is going to be a really good option. Kind of reminds me of the Hoka. Oh, gosh, I'm going
to... I know what shoe.
David knows what I'm going to say. That for the life of me, I can't pronounce. Gaviota?
You got it.
Sweet.
Good job. I think we finally hammered it into your brain. You've gotten it right 2 times in a row, 2 to make it true. I think you're all right.
Third time's the charm for me to screw this up. So great walking shoe, standing shoe if you have a slightly snugger foot and want a softer ride, and easier running shoe. It's not fast despite the Power Run PB. It is tuned to be a little bit more of an easy day, long run shoe. And that's really what it's meant to be. It definitely feels a lot taller stack height than the measurements, but that's partially the sidewalls and the foam. So that rounds out a lot of the stability line. David, do you think you have any last comments on like special considerations for anybody with these shoes? Before you go, not to interrupt you, my last thing is be aware the only true medially posted shoe in this line is the Omni. Everything else is going to be guidance based. So if you want something more aggressive, the guidance in the Hurricane can do well. The Omni can still do well, but most of these, like the Tempest, still is a teeny bit more aggressive, Guide's more mild. They don't really have a super aggressive stability shoe anymore. It's more guidance. So just be aware if you're getting into that, which can also work well for those who don't do well with posts. So it's more about keeping you in the middle than pushing you one way.
Yeah, you have to wake up tomorrow and you have to choose one of those shoes to go to Disneyland with. Which one do you go?
Oh, honestly, I'm going to choose the guide because I'm having some upper issues with the snugness of the Tempest and the Hurricane. And the Omni, for me, that post feels great from remembering from when I was walking in it. It feels good when you're running. It's just a little too much. Posts don't work as well for me during walking, but that's me. So
yeah, long standing walking hours. Yeah,
I'd say
that's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah, guide would probably be that best, like middle. Let me forget about the shoe. Guides me, hence the name. But yeah.
Yeah, I choose the guide too. I think the EVA feels a little nicer for the long standing hours.
I will also say, I think in our review, I was a little critical of the continued EVA choice, but I have to be honest that it makes sense. I still would like Saucony to see what they can do.
Like a Power Run Plus or something.
Yeah, just to see what they can do. But I also understand if they don't go that direction, because when you start getting into softer, more responsive foams, it is much harder to control them. And you've already got the Tempest. So it's like, try not to have overlap. I get it. You want to create individual products. So speaking of getting a little faster, we are now going to move into the racing line. And so this is going to include all the Endorphin shoes. We are going to include one that some people might not consider racing, but you have to realize it was designed as a racing shoe for a special population, even though it might work as a trainer for many. So this includes the Saucony Endorphin Trainer, the Saucony Speed 4, Endorphin Speed 4, the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, the Saucony Endorphin Elite 2. Let me catch my breath here. And then the last one is the Saucony Sinister. Was there an Endorphin? No, it's just the Saucony Sinister, which is their lightweight, minimal.
Why didn't they just call this one of the most counterintuitive names for a shoe ever if it was the Endorphin Sinister?
Yeah, that's fair. They should have just called this the Endorphin Racer 3, right? Because there was the Endorphin Racer was their like super minimal shoe that came out. And there was an Endorphin Racer 2, and then they should have just called this 3. But I'm not in charge of that.
So or like some kind of a modern iteration of a Fast Twitch, or Fast Twitch was Saucony, right?
It was, but it was the Type A. Yeah.
Type A, yeah.
Yeah. Was that? They had an A9, I think. That would have been A10, right?
There could have been a lineage continuation there.
Yeah.
Coulda,
woulda, shoulda. Saucony, please don't get rid of this shoe, by the way. Please update it.
I like the Sinister. Yeah.
It's a little narrow for me, but I'll start with the trainer because I think I'm one of the few on our team that have it. And I actually just got 100 miles on it. So the Endorphin Trainer was originally designed as the Kinvara Pro and is actually meant as a racing shoe for more mid-pack runners. And the reason why is there's some research out that suggests that middle pack or more recreational, slower runners, not to use that as an insulting term, is they don't necessarily get the same benefits out of super shoes that maybe faster runners do. And what Saucony found through some internal testing was going, hey, we actually can design shoes that give additional benefit to slower runners just based on the geometry and the mechanics. It's still carbon plated. It's still got a top layer super foam, and the Incrediron midsole is their next like super foam. It's awesome. So I really enjoyed the shoe, but it is technically a racing shoe for slower runners and can also be a faster training shoe for others. Not saying you have to race in this. If you are a slower runner, just know that's what the option is. It's $180. It's 9.9 ounces, 280 grams for men's size 9, 8.9 ounces, 252 grams for men's size 8, 41, 33, although I've heard some other sources say 42, 34. Somewhere in that area, it's getting into that super stack, although it's not a super trainer technically with an 8mm drop. It's been a really great shoe. This has been like that versatile shoe that I can use for anything. I've used it for daily training, long runs, and pretty much every type of workout. I've done 400s, I've done tempo runs, I've done long runs, I've done hill repeats. It's just great because the carbon fiber plate, which is 3/4, it goes from kind of like that, like posterior midfoot to the forefoot, does give it some stiffness. And I will say on air, I think this is a halfway decent Endorphin Shift replacement. It still has that stiffness, has good sidewalls, because this actually is stable neutral for sure. Although it's stable neutral in a little more aggressive way, just because the way the EVA midsole, the Power Run is set up, it actually creates a mild wedge, especially midfoot. So if you need some midfoot stability, mild guidance there, mild stability there, this is going to work really well. And it has worked very, very well for me. It can do a lot of everything without being the most aggressive shoe on the market. I will say some of the other reviewers were kind of upset with this shoe, which it's $180. It's a little bit more pricey. The durability is a lot better. This thing has survived. This is my left shoe. It survived.
That's 100 miles?
100 miles, yes.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, chewing through the lateral forefoot, but the heels survived, which is a big deal for me. The Kinvara Pro did not. It's not that super trainer that I think people were hoping for. That was going to be like that 45 millimeter heel, full length Incrediron. It's not what that is. It's still meant to be that balanced trainer racer for a variety of people. And so, so I get there was some confusion on that, but for me, it's been a great shoe. So I think people that want something can do a little bit of everything. It's not the most aggressive shoe, but it can still move and it can be a racing shoe for a lot of people, especially long distance. I think this is where this shoe is going to be great without being too aggressive, maybe being a little more safer option for a lot of people. You want to take us through the Speed and Pro and some of the other ones?
Yeah. I just think it's funny when you're like, people are like disappointed because it wasn't 45 and full Incrediron. And in my head, I'm like, do people want to break their ankles?
I guess. I mean, I'm scared enough. I'm having a hard enough time with the Endorphin Elite 2. And that's 39 and a half. Like, I can't imagine. Gosh. For those who haven't.
On the record, too, like Incrediron, it's an amazing foam. Don't get me wrong. It's a really nice foam. But it is soft, man. Gosh. Like, if you put a full. Well, I guess the Endorphin Elite is that, but it has a carbon plate. That has a carbon plate, too. So I don't know. I'll shut my mouth. But you put 45 in that, like, that could be different. Yeah.
That's different. Because, the Endorphin trainer isn't full stack height. It's got the power
it has the
base, right? Yeah. Which balances that out really well. We'll talk about the Endorphin Elite 2, and David and I have some different thoughts on it, but that thing has got the wobbles. So I can't imagine 45 millimeters of Incrediron would be terrifying. Even with the plate would be terrifying.
Well, I think we agree. I think it's more just a mechanics thing.
That's fine.
Because I agree with you.
Yep. All right, so let's start and drop into the Speed, Pro, and Elite, and then we'll do a special section on the Sinister. So why don't you take us off?
So as Matt was saying earlier, there will be a Speed 5 coming, but for right now, what we have our hands on is the Endorphin Speed 4. If you've been following us or running shoes in general, the Speed line has just been a monster in that versatile training companion category. And I say training companion, but it's a racing shoe for a lot of people. And it's a very approachable shoe. And it's another one of those shoes where if you are a little sensitive to either carbon plates or you don't feel like you quite need a full super shoe and you want something a little bit more flexible and a little bit more training friendly, that's always been what the Speed is. It's kind of like that slight step down. But I feel like saying a step down really isn't fair. It's still a really good shoe, but it just slight change in the materials where maybe it's not the max economy stuff that they were testing. But what's up?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you. And I want to add, and somebody can call me out if this is wrong, but my interpretation of the original Pro and Speed was actually based on the McLeod study that we reference all the time, that Jared Ward was a part of, where they were looking at how different people actually respond best to different levels of stiffness. So some people are going to do really well in a stiffer platform, maybe example, something that's carbon fiber plated, whereas other people might need a little bit more flexibility, like a nylon plate, like the Speed. So it's actually really meant to be like an alternative racing shoe for people that maybe don't do as well with carbon. And I would say the Endorphin Speed 4 is definitely that, where it is a true, yes, it's a little less aggressive, can handle some training, but it is still very much a racing option for a lot of people.
1000%. And I've been able to hit hard track intervals in this thing and be fine.
Yep.
Like, so it can turn over with the best of shoes. But to go over specifications, then this one's at 170. So again, another appealing price point if you're looking at super shoes, because a lot of these super shoes are 250 plus. So 170, 8.2 ounces, 233 grams. Men's size 9, 7.2 ounces, 206 grams. Women's size 8. Now, this is where in this line of model of shoes, they change the stack height. And in the Speed, it is 36 millimeters in the heel, 28 millimeters in the forefoot. So not 40. So slightly more grounded experience there. Nylon plate, but it still uses a Power Run PB midsole. Still has a really grippy outsole. Upper is a little bit more training friendly and a little bit more robust than the racing model. A little bit more comfortable probably for most people. but it is intended to be either that racing model for those that like a slightly more approachable offering, and or the training companion to the Endorphin Pro and or Endorphin Elite. So where you're doing your workouts in this shoe, but you are racing in the other shoe, and kind of saves miles on your super shoe, and you can still get a lot of work in and beat the crap out of this shoe because it is durable. It will hold up quite well. So that's kind of the goal of it. That's how I use it. So I mean, I think it's pretty accurate to what it is. That was my performance trainer, lightweight trainer, responsive, whatever we want to call it, shoe of the year this last year for 2024. So it's a shoe that I like a lot, and it's very responsive. And I think at 8.2 ounces, it's very competitive for what it is. You can do easy runs, long runs, hard track workouts. You could do a little bit of everything. So I'm not trying to be here and just hype up the Speed 4, but that's what it is. It's meant to be versatile, and it is. So
it's not just you hyping up. It is a incredibly popular shoe. We also know from Saucony it sells very well. So we're probably never going to see the Speed disappear just because it's popular for a reason. It's much more approachable than the Pro or the Elite, and so people can race in it, train in it, and do easy runs. So it's true definition of versatile while being light enough to actually race. So I agree 100%.
Yeah. And that leads us to the Endorphin Pro 4. Now, I don't actually have my Endorphin Pro 4 on me. Do you have yours? Perfect.
I do. 100 miles on them.
So general geometry, for the most part, the shoes look pretty similar. I'd say the toe spring in the Endorphin Pro 4 is probably a tiny bit sharper. And so it's obviously stiffer because there's a carbon fiber plate versus the nylon plate. The upper is a little bit lighter. It's more of like a streamlined racing. Like that is pure racing. There is not like, they don't want that to necessarily be a training shoe. So they shave off weight where they can. It's again carbon plated Power Run PB midsole, and that one comes in, and it's 40 millimeters on that one. So it is like the super shoe standard of full stack height there. But price $225, weight 7.7 ounces, 218 grams, men's size 9, 6.5 ounces, 184 grams, women's size 8. Stack height 40 millimeters in the heel, 32 millimeters in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. That is their super shoe, one of the two super shoes that they have. And it's good. It's aggressive, though. It's one of those shoes where you really want, if you like a stiff, grippy, like kind of hard to press forefoot, that shoe has that. And so like one of our members of our team, Andrea, loves that shoe. And she likes it for like 5K, 10K. Like, that's a shoe where it's like if you put in a lot of force into that forefoot, like it'll respond, and it is grippy. I think the geometry of it can be a little bit aggressive for the marathon, but if you strike in a way that it agrees with the mechanics of it, and you like that kind of sharper toe spring and that like real stiff forefoot, like it could work well for you. I think for me, it was a little much. I know we're not doing reviews here. The heel fit though was a little bit loose on me. Like I feel like my heel floated a little bit. So it just wasn't personally like the super shoe for me. But I could definitely see that being a good super shoe for a lot of people out there. And because of how aggressive it is and like how grippy it is too, like I'd argue that you could run that on a well-groomed cross-country course too, if it was like a packed dirt and or like shallow grass, nothing like thick, I'm not talking like real, not real cross country, but like a fast course cross country course. I think you could run on that.
I would just say be careful with any wet surfaces because for whatever reason, Saucony and the Endorphin Elite's actually the 2 is not as bad, but Endorphin Elite 1, any like soft, wet or not soft, but like wet road or wet surfaces, like wet track, did not do super well with this. But I think, so maybe like mild stuff potentially. But I 100% agree with you. This shoe is so stiff. Honestly, it's stiffer than the Endorphin Elite 2. And I find 1000%. The Endorphin Elite 2 really works better for those longer distances. The Pro 4 is like if you really want something stiff and move faster. And now I finally agree with Andrea that maybe moving faster and maybe some shorter distances, or if you want something really stiff for longer, is where this thing works best. It is a super racing shoe. So this is different than the Speed, where this is not going to be training friendly. It's too stiff. Some people might be able to do that. No judgment to them, but that's not what it's meant for. It's meant for racing, for faster efforts with not the Power on PB is good. It's bouncy. It's not as bouncy as the Incrediron, but this shoe really benefits from the stiffness factor. So if you like stiff and fast, this is where your go-to is going to be. And I had the same thing, by the way. Volume is higher in this upper. Like, I don't know if you could, for those watching on YouTube, I had to cinch this thing down. So if you have a higher volume foot, this is going to actually work really, really well for you. And volume mean like how the height and how much like room there. I had to cinch this thing down to get my my foot to stop sliding. So just know the fit is a little bit different. It's definitely a different shoe in general. More stiff, might work a little better at some shorter stiff stuff when you're really pushing off that forefoot, a little higher volume. So a very unique shoe for sure that took me a little while to appreciate. So different kind of person that might work well with this shoe.
I guess that leads us to the Endorphin Elite 2, huh?
Yeah. Where am I?
Oh, mine's right here. I don't part from my Endorphin Elites very far. I mean, this has been, from its founding.
I left mine downstairs.
Oh, rookie move. Man.
I know, rookie move, man. All right, you lead.
Yeah, so I've been a big fan of the Saucony Endorphin Elite line from its beginning. And when they, I'll hold it up there for the viewers because everyone wants to go see these shoes. When they first announced the Endorphin Elite 1, they sent it in like a crate, like a literal crate. And then there was a hammer on top of it. And you had to pry open the crate, and then you had your shoes resting inside of said crate. And I still have that crate. It's over there. You can't see it, but it's over there. But I kept it too, partially because one, it was cool, and two, like I really liked the shoe, and it was what my marathon PR is currently set in Endorphin Elite 1, that is. And we just got our hands on Endorphin Elite 2. It is a continuation of that super shoe. Now, the changes they made in the Endorphin Elite 2 are very noticeable. And some of the people where Endorphin Elite 1 may have really agreed with them, there might be a population where the Endorphin Elite 2 does not agree with them. And that's Klein. And that's where he was mentioning earlier where we might differ on some things. But I actually do agree with him. And we'll talk about it here in a second. I think it's more of a mechanical difference than it is a biomechanical difference than it is the actual than a general philosophy and thought. But again, Endorphin Elite 2, so similar platform as the Endorphin Elite 1, that hasn't changed much. So you still have that kind of like pretty decently beveled heel, pretty sharp toe spring, starts a little bit earlier, so you kind of feel like you're tipping forward a decent amount. Has a carbon fiber plate, just like other super shoes. And this one has a full-length Incrediron midsole, and that Incrediron, again, very soft, very bouncy. So this is a very responsive foam, but it is soft. Where PowerRun HG in the 1 was a little bit firmer. Now, I will say I think the Incrediron midsole is more responsive than the PowerRun HG midsole that we had, but that comes with the cost of it being a lot softer. And if you don't agree with that softness, that is where some issues could happen. And when you look at the platform, again, not a review, so I don't want to go too far into this, but they didn't really widen too much out there, and the general geometry of it is pretty similar. And with how soft that heel is, I mean, like, look, I could just like squish that thing. Like, I'm not even going that hard. Like, this foam is soft. And so if you land really hard on your heel and you have some general instability in that rear foot, that could give you a hard time. With that said, if you do not land that hard there, or you like gently land there, or you're a little bit more forward through the midfoot or the forefoot, you'll probably do fine. And so I think for me, I am a heel striker, but I'm not quite as dramatic on that heel. And for me, the geometry still works. On to the specs, because I haven't talked about the specs at all. But it's $275, 7 ounces, 199 grams, men's size 9, women's size 10.5. It's a unisex, that's why.
Yep.
Yeah. And then stack height 39.5 in the heel, 31.5 in the forefoot, 8mm drop. Super shoe. I like it most for marathon. With how soft that foam is, when you're really running fast, sometimes it can feel a little soft. Like there's like a little bit of give to it where you're like, this is a little bit more mushy than I want for really fast running. And if you're on the track, you're turning all the time, and this is a really soft shoe. So you kind of feel like you're getting pushed outwards a little bit. But for like long, rhythmic, fast running, like half marathon, very good shoe, dialed in. But I think the caveats I talked about, really soft, kind of slightly narrow midfoot. I mean, heel and midfoot. I mean, Really, the widest part's just the forefoot. And yeah, I mean, like you said, you could just see me deform that shoe right there as I go and play with it. So for the people that it will work for, I think it'll really work for, but there will be a population of people that it doesn't work for. Definitely.
Maybe like me. So to summarize this, we'll get to the Sinister in just a second, but it's unique enough that I think we're going to leave it for last. To help people understand the differences between these shoes, because now the Endorphin Elite 1 and the Pro 3 were actually had a lot of similarities that made, I think, it difficult for people to really grasp how to choose one versus the other, even though they had differences that you felt when you put it on. Now things are really clearly different. So Endorphin Elite, the Endorphin Trainer versus Speed 4 are going to work for different people. They could very much complement each other, where the Endorphin Trainer could totally be a training shoe for a lot of people, or a racing shoe for those that maybe don't do well with the lighter, more aggressive shoes. The Speed 4 is the more it's the lowest stack height of not of all of these four, not of the Sinister. So it's lower, more balanced ride, less aggressive. Also really versatile option like the Trainer, but I think it's faster than the Trainer because it's so much lighter. The Trainer's still a little heavy but it doesn't feel like that. It's heavier for kind of what you would expect in this line because it's the Trainer. The Speed is speed. It's faster. It's definitely a race model for a larger population, and that's what's going to really differentiate these two. When it comes to the Pro and the Elite, that's where you're going to get really big differentiations in how soft the foam you want and how stiff you want. So Elite 2 has a carbon fiber plate. For me, it's all about how insanely soft that material, that midsole foam is. So David mentioned this. It's too soft for me to take. It's meant for longer distances. It does best during like half marathon to full marathon efforts. I for the life of me, really struggle to get it to go 10K, 5K and faster. The foam is so soft. It's bouncy, but it doesn't respond very quickly. So the velocity, the rate of how quick the foam reforms is slow, but super soft. So you want the softest thing. I would say like the softest super shoe on the market. And you got stable mechanics. The Endorphin Elite 2 is going to be great. If you're doing half marathon, it's going to be awesome. If you want something that's more balanced a little bit, and I said the Pro 4 is on that stable neutral category, but you want something really stiff in the forefoot and not mushy soft, that's where the Pro 4 is going to be better. It is a little bit heavier than the Elite 2, but it's better balanced. So those are two different shoes and both great. The Elite 2 is going to be sitting with that Alpha Fly, that Cloud Boom Strike. The Pro 4 is going to be sitting a little bit closer to some of the other shoes on the market that aren't quite like the highest of the highest level and price. But I think for a lot of people, stiffness and a better balanced ride is what's going to differentiate those two. Do you want to give your thoughts on the Sinister, or is there any other differentiations you would put in before we jump into the Sinister?
No, I think we hit it. Then the Sinister goes and breaks all the rules. So it's very low profile, very flexible, very grippy. Like, I mean, this thing it's Sinister, man. It's
super narrow too, by the way.
It is narrow. It fits like a track spike.
Yep.
Like it definitely fits like a track spike. If you haven't had a track spike on before, lower volume, snug fit, a little bit more narrow. It also kind of undercuts in that midfoot a little bit, if I remember correctly. I don't have my pair anymore. I ran mine into the ground, so that's compliments to that shoe. But it's undercut a little bit. Very neutral shoe. Very, very neutral shoe. Yep. So $150, 4.9 ounces, 139 grams, men's size 9, 4.3 ounces, 122 grams, women's size 8, stack height 25 in the heel, 19 in the heel, 19 in the forefoot, and 6 millimeters drop. So that is actually track legal. I'm sure they put 25 on purpose to make that track legal if you're sensitive to spikes. But it is a Power and PB midsole. So kind of like that firmer but still bouncy PIBA-based midsole. And it's flexible, low profile, grippy. For me, I didn't personally love it for racing specifically over a track spike per se, at least at the time when I was testing it. Maybe more now. I mean, I'm a little bit more sensitive to spikes than I was then. But it's a low profile shoe and it's flexible. But I loved it for track work. I really liked it for like anything that was like shy of maybe 2K intervals, you know? I mean, like you could obviously race 5K, even 10K in that shoe. Some people might even take it longer, but I feel like 10K is probably the ceiling for most people on that. And it grips well, it corners well, it can, it's a good shoe. I mean, I use it mostly for workouts, but you could easily justify road 5Ks and 10Ks as well as track 5Ks and 10Ks. And if it really came down to it and you just hated spikes, it's really light and it's responsive enough. Like, you could probably still run a 15 in that if you wanted to. It's just at that point, I think if you're racing 1500, though, most people are probably spiking up. But if you had to and you really didn't like spikes, like, you could kind of hit all the distances on the track with that model. But again, very flexible. I mean, it's kind of like the last true traditional flat that we really have, right? Like that low profile, flexible, grippy shoe. Again, and you can use that probably for cross country too. Definitely 10K down, I think, is where that shoe shines. Outside of the couple of zealots out there that can really handle lower minimal profile shoes, they might love that for marathon or half. If for that specific population, I wouldn't personally do that, but there are some people out there that can take those types of shoes and just go hammer 26.
And good for them. But yeah, this is like one of the last remaining shoes. I would say one of the closest shoes for those that want a wider fit is the Topo Spectre. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Wait, Spectre or Cyclone?
No. Cyclone. I'm sorry, I messed it up. The Cyclone 3 is probably the other option. It's not quite as light. It's still got a super foam, but it's not plated, more flexible. So if you have a narrow foot and you want that snugger fit, the Sinister is going to be great. If you need a wider option, that's where the Cyclone is going to be. But it's still one of the lightest shoes on the market, although there are some that have gotten lighter now that actually are super shoes, like the 361 Miro that came out. There's a couple other shoes that that I've been snooping around on the internet and found out about.
Evo 1's comparable. It's like 5 ounces.
It's heavier, technically heavier.
By 0.1 ounces.
Yeah, it's much higher
by
stack
a tenth of an ounce.
There, yeah. So those who want that more classic minimal racing shoe feel, this is probably one of the final ones out there that's like this. It's light it's close to the ground. It feels much lower drop than that 6. So if you like that, great. Just know it fits super snug. This is very different than the rest of the Endorphin line. And the reason it's not part of the Endorphin series is it's not got some kind of stiffening agent. It's flexible. It's a lower stack height. So this is a rare bird on its own.
It's not a rockered shoe either.
Yeah, it's not rockered. It's the rare final minimal shoe. Almost wonder if you could call it a type A. You mentioned this, like a type A. What's this?
Yeah, like it could have been just a continuation of that line.
Yeah. So that's where that's at. So that is the faster line for the speed line, not the speed line, what do you call it? Yeah, the racing line for Saucony. Do you want to start us out on some of the trail stuff?
Or do you want me to? The first one on that list there, I don't have, and I haven't actually seen.
Let us run through this. So there's a couple different ones. There's actually more than this, but we're going to go through the really, really big ones, and we'll explain the purpose. Even though we haven't gotten near, we're not a trail running review site. We do get trail shoes. We do our best, but we're primarily road. But we still want to give you some options for trail. So the couple ones out there are going to be the Saucony Ride TR2, which we have not run in. We ran in the Ride 15 trail, which is just a trail version of the Ride series. It was a great shoe. It was great. The other standard Saucony trail shoe is the Saucony Peregrine 15 that we'll talk about. The kind of more cushion version of this shoe is going to be the Exodus Ultra 3, more foam underfoot, a little bit heavier, very different than past ones. And then their racing trail line is a little odd because they've been there for several years. We really haven't seen updates, and I don't know what's going to happen with these. You can still find them, and they're actually on sale. So the Saucony Endorphin Edge and the Endorphin Rift are the two trail racing shoes. The Edge is the carbon plated or the Carbitex plated one, and the Saucony Endorphin Rift is kind of the same thing.
Carbitex is still carbon.
Yeah. The Endorphin Rift is the non-plated super foam version of that shoe, which is unique as a trail shoe, so there's no stiffening agent there. So the Saucony Ride TR2 is pretty simple, meaning it's really just the Ride, basically the Ride 17 essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, with the Power M Plus with just some lugs and a more durable outsole, which makes it a little bit heavier. So it's 10.4 ounces, 296 grams for men's size 9. 8 millimeter drop, 35, 27 millimeter shoe, just like the last previous versions. Some decent lugs on it, but if you're like, hey, I don't really need this crazy new trail shoe, which trail shoes are often different. I just like the Ride and I want a trail version of a road shoe. That's really what this, all-terrain shoe. That's really what this is. That's the simplest way to describe this. When you get into the Peregrine, that's where things change a little bit. So the Peregrine 15, this shoe has gone through a lot of changes. It's been maximalized, meaning it's not high stack height, but it's a lot taller and less nimble than what it used to, but it's still the nimble trail shoe of the Saucony line. It's 9.8 ounces for men's size 9, 278 grams, 31 millimeters in heel, 27 in the forefoot, a 4 millimeter drop. So it's very low on the heel drop, which it definitely feels like that, but it's gotten a lot taller. So it's still I think it's a Power Run. I was also checking. Yeah. So fun fact, Power Run midsole, but they're using that Power Run Plus insole. So it does have a teeny bit of bounce, and I love when Saucony does that. I forgot to mention
they do that. Play with the sock liners.
Yeah, and it makes it just to give it a little bit more bounce. So if you wanted a non-super, like slightly quicker, more nimble trail shoe that wasn't a super shoe, this is a great one. It's nimble. It can move pretty quick. It's lower drops. If you like that, that's where it's the lowest drop of all of these ones. And it's really the true trail shoe, as opposed to the Ride, which is, again, a daily little more of a daily training shoe. This one can pick it up just because it's got a slightly lower stack, although not as low as it used to be. And I know I'm complaining because I like the older one. And just a little more bounce. As always, this fits just a teeny bit more snug and lower volume, as many trail shoes do. But yeah, that's the lower stack height of the Saucony trail line. When you move into the Exodus, that's where it really changes. And this shoe has really, really changed and went to a higher stack height and just feels heavier. It's a heavier shoe. It's 10.9 ounces or 309 grams for men's size 9, 9.4 ounces or 266 grams for women's size 8. 36 millimeters of heel, 30 in the forefoot. It does not feel like that. It feels much higher stack. And it's really meant to be that bulldozer of a shoe now, where it used to be really nimble. This is where the Exodus and the Exodus Ultra now intervene or like come together, whereas the old Exodus used to be just this hiking shoe. And the Exodus Ultra was the running shoe, and they've intervened where you kind of got both. It's not as light as it used to be, but it is really durable and can handle anything you throw at it. So especially long distance ultra marathon, if you need to going back and forth between running and hiking, this is a really good option, but it is not as nimble as it used to be. So this is the higher cushion model of those two. Any thoughts on what I just said before I jump into the Edge and Endorphin Rift?
No, I think it's good. I haven't actually been able to get my hands on an Exodus Ultra 3. To go over the changes, though, like I noticed it's much wider and like more stack. That seems to be noticeable because, I mean, that's the stack right there of this one. This is the Run Shield version of the previous version. And so you could see grippy legs. This is a more weatherproof kind of upper, but yeah, it was a Power Run PB inner core with a thick, like EVA kind of outer casing was kind of how the Exodus Ultra used to be. But yeah, those are just differences.
Yep.
But looking at the Edge and the Rift there, so the Edge is the main carbon plated racing model for the company, and that comes in around $200. 9 ounces, 255 grams, men's size 9, 7.8 ounces, 221 grams, women's size 8, Power Run PB midsole, carbon plated. I don't know what the lug depth is on that. It's probably like 4 millimeters, maybe.
Yeah, 3.5. I think 3 to 4. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, prominent but not super deep. So it's a pretty nice shoe. I felt like the upper moved around a tiny bit, but for the most part, it kind of felt like almost like an Endorphin Pro 3, but with a trail kind of focus on it. It's kind of how it felt. And yeah, it's like the Pipa-based midsole carbon-plated trail racing shoe, and it's really nice. And because of the softness of the Pipa-based midsole, you can even run some road on it as well. So if you're doing some road to trail, or if you're running a course, I did it too. Yeah. If you are doing a course where that there might be some variance in the terrain, that shoe can run on the road just as well as it can run on the trail. So it's a very versatile trail model that's out there. Endorphin Rift is kind of a similar concept and design, but without that stiffening agent. And so that is at $170, 8.3 ounces, 244 grams, men's size 9, 7.3 ounces, 207 grams, women's size 8, 33 millimeters of stack in the heel, 27 millimeters of stack in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter drop. And I didn't realize that the stack on that was lower by 3 millimeters. I don't know why I never put that together until reading that off.
I remember that, but it always just didn't.
It feels softer though.
Yeah, it didn't feel like
no
that.
Plate.
There's no plate, so it feels softer. It's actually the lighter shoe. So I would say the Rift is kind of like almost the Speed equivalent, except it goes in the opposite way as it's the lighter version. So if you don't want a plate, which not everybody wants a plate in a racing shoe or trail racing shoe, you want a little more flexibility. It's actually more stable, in my opinion, because of the sidewalls and just the way you sit. It's a little closer. So if you wanted that, a little more room in the upper, as you can see, I had to really lock those laces down. But just want like one of the lighter trail racing shoes on the market with this super foam. This is actually a really, really good option. As opposed to if you want more of that traditional super trainer, super racer trail shoe, that's where the Edge is going to come in. Which it's got some pretty solid competition now from some other shoes on the market. So I'm very curious to see, do they have an Edge 2? We haven't heard anything, but these are the two primary. If you want super racing line with super foam, not necessarily the highest stack heights on the market, because when you have trail, that's a little bit more difficult. And we've seen that with some other companies that have tried that and hasn't always worked out super well. But this is your super shoe option, whereas the Exodus and the Peregrine and the Ride are going to be more of your more traditional options. If you don't want something super soft and bouncy, if you want to be a little bit more grounded, if you want to go a little lighter, a little closer to the ground, that's where the Peregrine's going to be. If you want something like that versatile, like you said, the Road to Trail, Ride TR2 is going to come in. But if you want that ultra heavy duty bulldozer of a shoe, that's where the Exodus Ultra 3 is going to come in. And that is our summary of the primary trail, or not the primary shoes within the Saucony lineup. There's a lot of things. There's really something for everyone. If you're looking for a guidance stability shoe, a neutral shoe, a highly cushioned shoe, a variety of racing shoes for literally almost every person out there, from minimal to the bounciest, softest shoe on the market. Variety of things in the trail world, if just kind of fitting for a lot of different people. So it's a pretty versatile company. And there's even more shoes actually that you can find if you need some budget friendly options. Why? I just looked this up.
The Cohesion has been out forever.
Yeah, Cohesion.
If that's still going.
It is still going. It's one of those classic, like, neutral road shoes.
I had a Cohesion in high school.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
It's a classic shoe. A lot of people wear it. You'll find it at a lot of big box stores, and it does fairly well. It's been updated over the years. Why am I forgetting what was the trail shoe that actually was so awesome? It was the budget trail shoe that was actually phenomenal. This is one of my favorite shoes.
I can ask Dr. Google real quick on the air.
Yeah.
Saucony trail budget shoe. Let's see what it gives me.
It was something. Was it the TR?
Endorphin. Uh-oh. I'm drawing blanks. Blaze TR? Is that?
Yes.
Hey,
yeah.
There we go.
Blaze TR was legit a good, and you can find this well under $100. Yeah, it was a great shoe. So nice budget friendly trail option. Saucony has a little bit of something for everyone. Very unique. Again, they tend to fit a little bit more snug than other companies, have a variety of different foams, and the foams are going to match different things for different people. But again, that is our overview of the Saucony shoes. There are some updates, so know that we're going to be missing some things on the Speed 5, Hurricane 20, or the Hurricane 25, and the Triumph 23, and we'll update this and update our reviews.
Maybe even Pro 5.
Was the Pro 5 supposed to come out this year?
I haven't seen it, but I don't know. They got a Speed 5 coming. Maybe.
No, I think Pro 5
usually they come in together.
Yeah, Pro 5 I think is 2026.
I mean,
but I might be wrong.
Know, probably. I haven't seen it anywhere. So no.
I've seen some images
things out there
that I found on Reddit that got taken down, but that's me.
How do you find everything before it gets taken down?
I don't know. Luck. So yeah, that's our full review. Please let us know in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with us on any of the comments? We always want to create a resource for people. And then also, the last but not least thing, we really hope this is helpful. We're always open to feedback, and we're trying to grow. And we'll continue to do this with other companies as we get full lineups, because we want to help you figure out how to choose the best shoe for you among this crazy sea of shoes that exists now, which variety is good, but sometimes having a little direction could be helpful. So as always, hope this is helpful, and hope you have a good time wherever you are listening to this from.